Business Link Alberta acknowledges and respects that we are on traditional land, meeting grounds, territories, gathering places, and traveling routes of Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, and the home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the lands of those who have come before us, reside here now, and in the future. Welcome once again to Fraud Prevention 101 for entrepreneurs. If you have ever wondered, would I actually notice a scam before it's too late? How real do these scam emails actually look? Or what simple steps can I take to protect my business without buying expensive tools? You're in the right place today. This session is designed to be practical, clear, and actionable so that you can walk away feeling more confident and protecting your business. My name is Linda Posada, and I'm the event specialist here at Business Link Alberta. If this is your first time joining us for a Business Link webinar, welcome. Business Link Alberta is a government-funded nonprofit that helps Alberta small business owners in the province start, grow, and thrive their businesses. We offer free one-on-one support, market research, training, webinars such as this one, and resources to entrepreneurs at any stage of their journey. Now, I'm very excited to introduce today's speaker, William Dunn. William is the founder of Blue Shield Cybersecurity Protection here in Edmonton, Alberta. He's a former police and parole officer who now works as a cybersecurity consultant and investigator, specializing in online scams, phishing, and business email compromise. To date, William has investigated dozens of real-world fraud cases totaling over $2 million in stolen assets, and he regularly trains small businesses, libraries, and community groups on how to prevent fraud before it even happens. Today, William will walk us through how modern scams actually work, the most common ways that small businesses are targeted, and simple steps that you can take to protect your money and your systems. We're super excited to have you here with us today, William. I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm going to share, send my share screen request. Hopefully you guys will be able to see it. Beautiful. Awesome. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Everything is all above board. Thank you so much for having me, Business Link, and thank you so much for organizing this, Linda. And also thank you all for attending this webinar. I'm very excited to present to you guys. This is, as Linda mentioned, a very important issue, something that is exploding all across not just the business world, but uh, against individuals and vulnerable populations as well. So, but today we're going to be focusing mainly on business. I won't spend too much time talking about who I am because Linda already did a great job. I'm a law enforcement professional with over 10 years experience. I work for the government of Alberta as a parole officer and the city of Edmonton as a police officer with EPS. I've met literally thousands of criminals and I've seen the explosion of cybercrime firsthand. What do I do in Blue Shield? One of the main things I do that we talk about, or that I'm going to be talking about here, is that I investigate scams and try and recover funds for victims. I've investigated dozens and dozens of scams, and I've seen them go from all sizes. I've seen scams that target large corporations, I've seen scams that target small businesses, and scams that target individuals. Um, I had a video here. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it to work properly. But the purpose of the video was they were doing a street interview with a lady and they kind of asked her what her passwords are. And she says that my password is my dog's name and the year I graduated. And then they ask her a couple follow-up questions and basically get that information from her and get her to admit her password without much effort. And the one thing I really want you to take away from this session that we're going to discuss here is that human beings are far easier to hack than computers. Human beings are, we don't get our software updated very often, maybe once every like 10,000 years if we're lucky. So kind of the old playbook that scam artists used back in, the cowboy times, the snake oil salesman to the con men from the 70s to the type of social engineering we see today. It's still a similar pattern because human beings don't change, our psychology doesn't change, and these are kind of tried and true tactics that they use. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day how solid your network defenses are, how solid your cybersecurity posture is, if someone tricks you into giving away your credentials. In the real life cases that I personally investigated, scammers use 80% human exploitation and 20% machine exploitation. So at the end of the day, it's far more important for us to recognize those red flags rather than us to, build the most expert, cybersecurity defense network. Okay, so today we're going to go through how scams run end to end so you can spot those patterns. We're going to do four common types of scams, do a scenario for each of them. And we're going to talk about how AI really changes the game, how it changes the bait of the scam, how it gets better writing, how you can fake people, you can fake your bosses, you can fake your coworkers. One thing I see a lot is people faking celebrities or experts in a field, like experts who are very skilled at investing. I'll see deep fakes of them all the time to try and get somebody to sign up for some fake cryptocurrency investment platform. We'll give you a fast triage checklist to check for suspicious messages and what you do with them, and a couple low cost controls and frameworks for you to stop most fraud before it happens. And then in the case that you do send money or send credentials, what you do in that first 30 minutes. We are going to tell you the best things that you can do to mitigate any kind of damage. So just a couple context here. In reality, in 2024, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, that's the series CAFC, just an abbreviation, received 180,878 fraud reports involving 636 million reported losses. And we estimate that that's only probably 5 to 10% of the actual losses that happen. So, I always just, give it a 10%, right? You add a zero onto this, onto that, and that's $6 billion in reported losses. In 2023, we had just under 600,000. It's increased in 2024. We haven't had the opportunity to see the 2025 data, but I'd imagine that it's a similar trend. And unfortunately, when it hits us as small business owners, we are not just losing money, we're losing trust in our vendors and our clients, where our cash flow is damaged, and of course, the time that we spend cleaning up the mess. At the end of the day, unfortunately, when a successful cyber attack hits a small business, 80% of the time that business goes under within a short period of time. And right now, unfortunately, most scams are targeting small businesses. About 57% of scams that we see target small businesses. So they are becoming increasingly a more vulnerable target, a more uh, targeted group, because what scammers want and what they see is they really want an easy target. And they feel like a lot of small businesses are an easy target because they see they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have the know-how to defend against me. They don't have the know-how to shut down this scam attempt. So my goal for today is to make payment harder than it is, to make payment fraud harder by tightening a few high leverage controls. We're going to talk about some verification steps, multi-factor authentication, clean email and payment habits, and also teach you how to spot the common red flags, because spotting those red flags is probably the most valuable thing we can do. When I take on a case and I start to investigate a scam to what have happened, I'll be real with you guys. It's very difficult to get recovery kind of once that happens. But if you act fast, recovery chances increase. But the best cure is prevention, right? They say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So today we're going to be focusing on preventing that before it happens. So these are the 6 steps that a scam will usually take. First off, the scam will do some recon, and they'll do a little bit of setup. They'll look into your vendors, your staffs, how your invoices are sent out, what your organization chart looks like. They'll get all of that important information before they end up doing anything, before they end up taking any step. And this is the most valuable, like the most time-consuming and valuable part for them in the scam, is just this reconnaissance and making sure that they can make themselves look as legitimate as possible. Once they feel like they have enough information, they'll make that initial contact, which will be a phishing attempt. It could be a spoofed email, or it could be an email inbox that they've compromised. Then at that point, they'll try and build trust with you. They'll pretend that they'll be your friend. They'll try and they'll probably look you up on social media, maybe see where you went to university, maybe see, some of your past employers, and be like, oh, I worked at that job too. I worked at that place too. Oh, I went to this university, and then you'll kind of feel like you have a little bit more rapport with them, and they'll try and build up that trust. And the next you'll see a change request, which is where they're going to try and change the details of your payment. That could be changing the banking details. It could be changing the way you make payments. For example, they could try and get maybe a cryptocurrency payment rather than the type of payments that you've seen already. Uh, Gift cards is another way that they try and get money out of people. And once that money moves hands into their account, they're going to try and cash it out. They're going to move the money fast. They move it into, usually they'll have separate bank accounts that they'll move it to. And then those bank accounts will move it to another bank account. And they'll move it to another bank account. And then they'll withdraw it. You know, it's usually three steps that they move the money because most banks won't go back three steps. It's like a common exploit tactic is that they know, you know, most banks will go back one step, maybe two steps, but going back three steps, you know, it's just kind of out of the cards for them. They also potentially try and move that money into cryptocurrency. This is another very common tactic I see. They'll move it into a cryptocurrency wallet, and then they'll move that. They'll change real money into cryptocurrency, move it from one wallet to another, to another, to another, and then they'll put it into one of these big cryptocurrency exchanges and withdraw that money. And then lastly, they're going to do the best they can to cover their tracks. They're going to delete any emails that they've sent. One big thing, and we'll be talking about this later in the webinar, is that they will change the rules if they're able to compromise your inbox. They'll change the rules of your inbox and they'll delete all those rule changes. Their big their big task here, their big goal here is to delay discovery. Because as I mentioned, the more time that goes in between that crime being committed, that money leaving your account, the harder and harder it is to get it back. So the key idea here, and this is with any cybersecurity defense, is to slow things down, slow down the money movement, slow down the exchange of bank details or login credentials that are involved. Verification beats detection because the more you verify, the higher likelihood there is that some point during that verification process that fraud, that scammer is going to be discovered. Uh, Let me just grab a drink here. Sorry. And, all right, sorry about that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the two most common pathways into your inbox, into your credentials here. Most payment fraud is either inbox access or a believable impersonation. So the account takeover, which is maybe someone has been able to guess your password, maybe it was leaked in a data breach. Somehow these people have been able to get your credentials and they will sneak into your inbox and they will stay there for however long they need to. You know, this is usually a process that can take months and months and sometimes years before they decide this is the moment that I'm going to pull the trigger and this is the moment I'm going to commit to my scam. So attackers will read your emails, they'll read everything, they'll read all your threads, all your invoices, all the communications you're making, and then they're going to wait for the right moment. They're going to wait for that right maybe invoice that you send out to compromise. They're going to maybe one thing I see commonly is that they wait for holidays and weekends because people kind of, you know, they're in weekend mode. They're ready to, you know, shut things down for a couple days, and people will take advantage of that moment of vulnerability. They'll set forwarding rules. This is another big thing that I see very commonly, where if someone's able to compromise your inbox, they will change the rules around in your inbox. To example, forward any invoices to their own inbox, to the scammer's inbox, so they can then analyze them to build a convincing spoof. Sometimes they'll also do things like they'll set like keywords where they delete any email that has the word password in it. So if you try and reset your password, that password set request that comes to your email box automatically gets deleted, making it harder to change your password and kick them out with a new set of credentials. And the result at the end of the day from this takeover is they get enough information so that the email that they send, the scam email that they end up sending, looks authentic. It looks like it's in the same thread as every other email that has been sent previously. It looks like the real deal. The other way that doesn't involve actually getting into your inbox and compromising it is through impersonation slash spoofing. If you don't have your email security settings set up properly, it's possible for someone to send an email that looks like it's from your boss or from somewhere else, but not actually be from your boss. It will have the same name, it'll have the same email address, but what they've done is basically taken their own email and they send it off to another server that then changes the details of the email, and then that server sends off the email to you, so it looks like it's from whoever they're trying to impersonate. The way and the way to recognize that is you have to look at the details of the email. You have to be able to read the headers. You have to be able to read like some of the code within the email to be able to spot that, which is something that unfortunately most people don't know how to do. They may also register lookalike domains. I remember one phishing email I found, or one phishing server I found was a Wells Fargo impersonation, but the Wells Fargo had three L's in it instead of two L's, right? So they try and find ways that they can mimic trusted domains to make it look like it's coming from a place that's legitimate. Another thing I see a lot is they'll take letters from other languages, right? Letters from, sometimes you'll see like Eastern European languages, like they have a C or E or something like that looks very, very similar to the C or E in our language. And they'll just kind of replace it with that. And, very subtle details in order to mimic, sorry, excuse me, everybody. Subtle details to mimic that initial domain to make it look legitimate. And another big thing is they really, really hammer the urgency button, right? We talked a little bit about how they exploit human nature, and one of the biggest exploits in human nature is this urgency, right? We all want to complete urgent tasks as fast as possible, particularly if they come with a threat. It's like you have to change these banking details or your payment access, your payroll access gets shut down in 24 hours, right? They try and push these buttons to make you move faster than you would initially and try and make you not think, not take a step back, not be like, wait a minute, there's something fishy here. They just want you to go as fast as possible because, the faster they can pull off this scam, the more likelihood they have of it being successful. So the result is that your staff or yourself or whoever else is in charge of moving the money moves it to a new account, and then it gets passed into the scammer's hands. The practical takeaway here is to treat any bank change details, any urgent payment requests as high risk, even if, sorry guys, I got a little bit of a cough. My apologies. Even if that email looks absolutely perfect. All right. All right, let's move on to a very common scenario, something that I see all the time, which is a fake invoice. And this is based on several common patterns here. What it usually looks like is that a vendor thread is copied or hijacked, and then the new invoice comes with updated payment details or a new PDF link. I'm actually looking at working on investigating a case right now that this exact scenario has happened. Obviously, I'm not going to tell the details, the explicit details, but enough to kind of obscure, who they are and what they do, that kind of stuff. But these people, this company was in the process of changing their bank details anyway. And they're obviously had a compromised inbox, and the hacker, the scammer, the malicious actor says this is the perfect opportunity. They're changing their email, excuse me, they're changing their banking details anyway. That gives us the perfect legitimate cover to forge this fake invoice. And it looks exactly like the real invoice that the company sends out, but the only difference literally is the banking number that they've changed. The only difference is they've made a new banking account, and because this company was changing banking details anyway, they were very vulnerable to a scam like this because everybody thought it was legitimate because everybody knew that this was happening regardless. So like we talked about, they get into your system and they just sit and they watch and they wait and they think about what is the best time to make this move. And then they see something like, hey, we're changing our details anyway. And then all of a sudden, the scam is on. So what the scammer wants is, as we mentioned, they want to be paid before you notice what's going on. They want to keep you replying inside that thread. The reason they want to do that is because A, it makes it look more legitimate. The more you guys talk back and forth, the more legitimate that it looks. And B, they're building up that they're taking up your time and they're building up that trust and that rapport, and you're less likely to suspect someone that you spend a lot of time talking to. Again, we talk about how they push this urgency. This is one of the number one buttons that they try and push. And it gets to the point where anytime, anybody tries to push something urgent on me, I'm like, what is going on here? Why are you trying to do this? It's like on automatic red flag in my head. They'll say things like, if you don't pay this now, you're going to have to pay these exorbitant late fees. We're going to do a work stoppage. You're not going to be able to get your employees paid. You're not going to be able to get your merchandise moved. There's a shipment delay. And this is all to get you to move that money into their mule account fast. And then as soon as they do that, usually I see within a minute, it's moved from their mule account to another account to another account. And this whole process happens extremely quickly. And when it hits your business, you get sorry, what what it hits in your business, obviously your payments are compromised, your payment account is compromised. You'll get people questioning, you as an owner, they'll be questioning if you do give an urgent task, they'll be like, well, is this really the owner? Is this really that urgent? Maybe you actually do need something to be done in a timely fashion. And now because of this scam, people are much more hesitant. Vendor relationships sour, obviously, when this is the big thing, right? When the vendor, I say you're a plumbing company and you need to buy a bunch of parts to get your next job done. Somebody sends you a fake invoice, you send the money to the scammer, and the real vendor comes to you and is like, why haven't you paid us? Where's the money for these parts that we sent you? And that's obviously a whole other series of issues that's going to arise from that. And then all the time that you have to spend to try and get your money back, clean up your system, call the bank. This is all time, time is money, and this is all time that you've lost doing tasks that can grow your business and it kind of puts you in a stable framework rather than having to deal with this mess. So the rule of thumb is if the invoice includes new bank details, always, always, always treat it like a security threat, not an accounting task. Anytime, even if, and in this circumstance where we did have an alternate, they were already planning to change their banking details anyway.
Mhm.
They just have to basically phone the bank and be like, hey, we just want to double check the number that we're sending it to just to make sure we're all above board. And any bank that balks at that, any bank that says, you know what, that verification request is a pain, we don't want to do it, is not a bank you want to be dealing with. Most banks are going to be like, yeah, no problem. We'll double check this for you. Um, uh-oh. Sorry, guys. My apologies. I have uh a double
Okay.
uh
I can read it.
what's that?
Still can read it.
Okay. Yeah, so when it comes to invoice red flags, you're never looking for one sign necessarily. It's a cluster, effectively. Um, sorry guys, I do kind of want to change that, but yeah, sorry. We'll power through it. I apologize for that, everybody. Um, So obviously we're looking at payment details being changed is a huge red flag. Another big red flag is new payment methods. For example, if you always paid through banking transfers and somebody suddenly wants an e-transfer, big red flag because e-transfers are very difficult to claw back. Cryptocurrency, huge red flag. Fortunately, you don't see this as much when it comes to business compromise. I see these crypto scams a lot, much more when it's individual being scammed versus a business. But at the end of the day, right, we're all individuals, so we still need to be wary of these things. We talk about that pressure language. They want to get it moved fast as possible. Another big thing is unexpected attachment or link to a new invoice. That can be a compromised or poisonous file where you click on that file, all of a sudden it puts a program on your computer that will give additional access to your machine. It sends more of your information off. Uh, PDF files are a huge vector when it comes to scams and hacks and getting into your machine. Phishing via PDF files is becoming a massive issue. So you always want to make sure that your PDF files are above board. The attacker address is a clone. It's not exact. Maybe there's one letter off. That's another thing you need to be aware of. And if you're asked to quiet or bypass normal steps, huge red flag, right? Everybody uh, at this point, when it comes to sending your money back and forth between your vendors, between your employees, between whoever it needs to go to, this should be a highly systematized process. And if anyone is asking you to bypass that process, stop, think there's something fishy going on here. Some of the verification checks we can do to make sure that something is real is we can call the vendor using a known number on file. Knowing their email signature is another big thing. These really small details, for example, uh, if something seems off about one of your bosses or your employees or your vendor's email signature, it's a huge red flag. You always want to verify your bank details verbally and document when you've done that verification. That's another important step. So everybody knows that this verification has already been done and everybody knows that it's okay. If possible, you may want to have a second way to verify. Maybe you have a message in your Slack chat. Maybe you have a second contact in your department that you reach out to, and then hold the payment until it's verified, even if it's awkward. You know, most vendors will understand, or hopefully they should understand that we are living in a world where scams and business email compromise are becoming an increasingly prevalent part of our everyday life. Anybody who balks at a verification request is someone that you don't want to do business with. That's someone that you want to be like, well, why would, why would you be afraid of a simple verification request? And if they are, unfortunately, it's a big, big red flag. So one of my biggest practical takeaway here is that sometimes knowing the mannerisms and quirks of the people you work with is your best line of defense. For example, one company that I worked with was able to prevent a business email compromise because their boss had a certain mannerism that he ended every email with, "I'll come by and talk about it later." And this employee got a request for to buy a bunch of gift cards for a staff appreciation meeting or a staff appreciation contest. And he didn't end this email with, "I'll come by and talk about it later." And this raised a red flag for the employee to the point where she went and asked her boss and be like, "Hey, you want me to go pull the trigger on those gift cards?" And the boss is like, "What are you talking about? I didn't ask for that at all." So just understanding those little quirks, the kind of things that keep us who we are and kind of verify our identity are extremely important. Another very important thing is a safe word to identify yourself. This is something you may want to think about. For example, one thing I would do is I work with a lot of seniors as well, because seniors are a very vulnerable population, and they're highly often a victim of this scam where someone will phone and pretend to be their grandson and be like, "Oh, I'm stuck in Mexico. I need $5,000 for bail." And what I encourage these seniors to do is set up a safe word or password where you say, "Okay, little Jimmy, I'll send you that 5 grand. Just tell me what the password is and I'll send it right away." And obviously, this is something that you verbally set up beforehand, and there would be no possible way for a scammer to know this. So that is probably one of your most powerful defenses, having like a safe word that you have in between your employee and your employer is one of the best ways to verify that this is who you really are.
Right.
Uh,
Simple but effective.
exactly. And that's the thing, right? In the realm of AI, we need to find more ways that we can verify that we're the human beings that we actually are. We're not being spoofed by somebody else.
Mhm.
All right. So vendor change payment requests, this kind of goes into the some of the thing as invoice requests, but it sounds normal because vendors do change banks a lot. But the scam is in the timing and how the channel you're sending that payment through. Um, Common tactics you'll get is we're switching banks with a PDF form. Please confirm that you've received this, and that will start the thread. We mentioned the thread setting up these email threads with scammers is very one of their most prevalent goals, one of their most prevalent tasks because it builds that rapport, makes it look legitimate. They may even reference real invoice numbers from the past because in this circumstance, they probably likely have been watching the communication throughout your organization for some time. And then they'll may even ask you to update the vendor on the master file or the mat where your wherever you have all your vendor payment information. Sorry, everybody. But they may even ask you to update that on the master file. And the reason for that is because then they kind of can get reoccurring payments effectively. If they poison, the document that everybody's referring to make payments, then that's just money in the bank, money in the bank. So the important thing to slow this down, to stop it, is to have a policy where no bank changes are accepted by email alone, right? We talked about having those verification steps, setting those processes in place in order to make sure that there are sufficient verification details and roadblocks to prevent a scam from happening. Uh, Slowing things down is one of the best things we can do to prevent a scam from happening in the first place. Uh, well, you can always send a verification call back to a known number, right? Like we talked about, call your bank, call, the vendor that you're sending this money to, and make sure that they actually are doing a bank changeover, and get the details for that as well. Always have a second person if you can, approve master request updates, vendor master request updates, and have a 24-hour waiting period for any first new payment details. Just slow things down, and can do a huge amount in keeping you safe. Um, if you have the capacity to do this, one thing you can do is have a one-page change request form, that if this person hasn't filled out the form, then no payment change happens. Our third scenario here is the payroll diversion. They direct deposit change requests are a favorite target. So they change like where you're sending your money that you're paying to your employees, or effectively, you'll get an email from an employee or HR basically saying, this is really devastating because it's taking money right out of an employee's, paycheck. They email you and they say, hey, I'm changing my payment details from my current bank to this new one. I got a new banking account. Send all my future paychecks here, and you're actually sending all that money to a scammer. So the employee is losing money, and it's quite devastating. And one thing is, this is often like right before the cutoff time. Like they kind of set it up in a way that they'll send these requests like with very limited time, in order to process them. That again, that builds that urgency. They're trying to get people to do things as fast as possible. And they may even include a void check image in a PDF. These are extremely easy to fake particularly with AI. I mean, you can put a check, you can ask AI to basically generate an image from of a check from a bank, and it's going to look extremely, extremely realistic these days. I mean, 2 years ago, this wasn't the case, but now, we've seen what AI can do, and we've seen the march of technology. These tools are getting more and more sophisticated, and scammers are adapting to that. So, again, just putting a couple of verification roadblocks is extremely helpful in preventing this from happening. No payroll change requests or via email alone. Have a callback number on file. So just maybe call the employee and verify that they want this change request. That's a simple thing that can be done and can stop this right in its tracks. Maybe require a second factor, like the employee has to, if you have like, when I worked for like the police, we had this employee portal where you could update information and stuff like that. And so if you want to update your payment request, you have to go through the portal and do that kind of stuff. So just adding that extra layer of verification will prevent that from happening, and lock out any payroll changes 24 hours before the pay run, unless this is an emergency. So you say, okay, we can change your request, but we're going to have to spend 2 days to basically make sure everything is above board. And if you outsource your payroll, it's very important to ask your provider what steps they require for those direct deposit changes. Just knowing, because a lot of times, particularly as small businesses, we outsource a lot of our work to different companies, to different people who help take care of these more mundane tasks for us. Just make sure you know what their processes are as well, because they're handling something extremely sensitive for you. I don't have a time. Can you tell me just how much time I have here? Just out of
Yes, we still have around 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So on business email compromise, this is the one you may hear a lot about, BEC. So the big difference between a business email compromise and say someone, who is changing invoices and stuff like that is that this is a targeted impersonation of a boss, of someone high up in the company, maybe an HR manager, and they are trying to get money or sensitive information without triggering those obvious alarms. So this is rather than someone spoofing an invoice directly, trying to get you to pay to a different place, trying to get you to change your bank account. This is someone pretending to be another human being. And the most common asks are, we want to work urgent wire or e-transfer to a new account. We talked about the gift card payments earlier, about how that one woman was able to see through the scammer's attempt because the scammer didn't spend enough time learning all the boss's mannerisms and figuring out the best way to do this. Um, and you want to have like another big thing we talked about urgency, invoice payment to avoid late fees is something you see all of the time. And another thing you might hear, send me the payroll list because they get that information. Now all of a sudden they have a ton of sensitive data and they can use that data to then, like we went back, they can do a payroll compromise where they change employees' deposits to different banks and that kind of data is basically a gold mine to the scammer.
Yeah.
We talk about the red flags, urgency, and secrecy is another one that particularly if you hear someone ever say, "Don't ever tell," don't tell so and so about this. Don't tell the HR about this. Don't tell whoever about this. You know, I do also a lot of work with parents to try and keep their kids online safe from the predators that are online there. And the biggest red flag I tell them is make sure your kids understand that the second someone says, "Don't tell your parents about this," is the immediate time you go and tell their parents about this and make sure they know that they're safe in doing that. If they use a different
Definitely.
writing style or greeting, or reply to address differs from the display name, and of course, if the request bypasses your normal approval. Simple policy that prevents this pain, no gift cards, zero exceptions. Any request for a gift card is treated as fraud. That's one of the scammers' number one favorite ways to get money out of people. Now we're talking a little bit about AI because AI is changing the game significantly. Um, One thing, we talk about what it changes is it makes writing look cleaner. There are fewer typos. Back in the day, a lot of phishing emails had seriously poor grammar, seriously poor
Mhm.
spelling. That's a thing of the past now. They can basically feed all the data they get from your inbox into an AI and basically have that AI spit out realistic sounding messages based on this data that it receives. Another thing we talk about, or people talk about a lot, is cloning of people's voices. People will get, you can easily spoof a phone number, and now you can easily spoof someone's voice. So let's say the CEO of the company does a lot of public speaking. They've got a YouTube channel, they got a social media page. They can take a little bit of that information and basically um, take a little bit of that information, basically spoof that CEO's voice. Deep fake for Zoom calls it is rare, but it is real. One thing I see a lot is actually North Koreans doing this. They'll like put a filter over their face so they look, like they're not from Korea, and so they'll look like a white person or a Latino person or whatever, and then interview for the job and basically hide the fact where they're really from. And then another thing I see a lot, and this is less for businesses, this is a lot for individual scams, impersonation of celebrities or segment experts. So I see a lot of individual scams where they'll try and get people to invest in these fake cryptocurrency companies, and they will do deep fakes of local celebrities or investment experts to try and build credibility for their company. The
Yes.
things they don't change though is that you still need you to move the money, right? AI can't force you to move the money around. They still rely on common tactics like urgency and broken processes. Um, Trusted verification still works. AI still can't really bypass a lot of those verification. And multi-factor authentication still blocks many email takeovers. You'll hear cybersecurity experts preach to the stars about multi-factor authentication. And a lot of them don't tell you why. I'll tell you why. It stops about 80% of cyber attacks in their tracks. It's not a silver bullet. You can't stop everything, but 80% is a is a pretty good number. So there's no reason not to do it. It's a very simple and easy fix for just about anything. All right. So when something happens, uh, when you see something that you might, excuse me, when you see something that you feel might be fake, here's what we can do in 60 seconds to try and stop it. Don't click, don't pay, don't reply, scan who it's from, what's the ask, when the deadline is. Another thing, particularly we can do this, it's harder to do on mobile, but most of us for our business purposes, we're on desktop. Hover over the links and expect the email address. That will give you a very good clue. If you see a link that kind of looks like gobbled up nonsense, that's a big red flag. Verify, verify, verify. It takes a couple minutes to call someone back to make sure that this request is legitimate. So that's a huge, huge thing we can all do. And document. Make sure you screenshot, save headers, keep the invoice copy for your own documents, but also in case you want someone like me to ever come in and do an examination. That's all evidence, right? Save that evidence. It's very, very important. Any payment request should be treated as a high risk. Verify it's a known contact. Require two approvals. Wait 24 hours if possible, and then pay a small test amount if your workflow allows. You know what? That's kind of a minor thing, but if you want to ensure everything's above board, you can pay a little bit, and if everything goes well, then you know that it's okay. And if it doesn't go well, well, at least you're not out, hundreds of thousands or more dollars. Um, Things that can stop scams, email hardening, MFA, we talked about, password manager with unique passwords,
Mhm.
disable legacy sign-in when possible. So if someone leaves your organization, make sure you disable their sign-in. If you have sign-ins on old machines, make sure you remove those. Review inbox rules. This is important because a lot of the time someone can change your inbox rules and be in there and you won't know about it. And by just doing a simple review, you can realize that someone has taken over. And then lock down any shared email boxes and remove old access. Um, so detection that's actually useful, uh, flag external emails, alert on email forwarding, require reauthentication for password changes, and then separate the approver from the doer accounts. And this is probably the biggest one. Make it easy to report suspicious messages. Make sure you have a culture in your company that anything that's suspicious can be easily reported, easily flagged, and taken care of, and nobody feels bad about going to whoever is in charge and talking to you about this. Minimum standard, enable MFA, particularly for owner and finance individuals. Um, Having vendor master rules, make sure that people can't get into those vendor master lists without verification, that things can't be changed without verification. If you can do it, have a two-person process for approval. And make sure that the pay name must match the legal vendor name when possible. Um, if you can do any exception rules, have dual payment approval for wires or high value payments, have a payment threshold ladder that the higher the payment is, the more verification it has to go through. No new payments via wire or crypto, and extra verification if anybody has any urgent requests. I have a simple script here, basically to say, hi, it's so and so from so and so company. I've received a request to change your payment details. Calling number we already have in file. Can you please confirm this last invoice and new banking details? If you can't confirm, we won't change anything. Yeah, I'm just about done here. Habits to build, like I talked about, slowing things down, reward reporting. Don't reward silence. Like I said, build that culture where people can feel free to come to you with issues, concerns, or suspicious emails they have. Make sure you have processes that are plain language and people don't feel like there's a lot of ambiguity here, because that can definitely derail things. And another big thing is, if you can, run a 10-minute drill quarterly. Talk to your employees about what do you do if you see a payment request? What do you do if you see a suspicious email? And that's just like a fire drill. Hopefully it never happens, but in case the fire happens, people should know what they need to do in that emergency scenario. Habits to kill. I don't want to bother the owner. Make sure that's not in your vocabulary. Approving payments over the phone. Um, changing vendor details to somebody help out. And this is another big one, assuming IT will catch everything. Cybersecurity is unfortunately a task for us all. It's a task that we all must take seriously. And in order to make sure that we are doing everything we can, we need to be vigilant ourselves. If you can have a team channel, a team, like, I don't know if you guys use Slack or whatever, but you can have basically a group for suspicious emails, and then anytime there's a suspicious email, somebody can put it into that channel, and people can look at it and examine it from there. So
That's a
if
great idea.
Sorry, what's that?
That's a great idea.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Um, so yeah, response in the first 50 minutes. If you have sent money, here's what you need to do. Call your bank immediately. Immediately. Put that on hold, recall that money. If it was a wire, treat it as urgent and escalate it within the bank. Contact the receiving vendor using known contact details so you can know what they can tell them what's going on. And this is a big one, preserve evidence. I've had issues where people delete the emails out of shame. They delete the chat logs out of shame. It's a huge, huge, huge absolute no-no because you're deleting evidence effectively. And
Yes.
all this evidence helps, someone like me be able to figure out what actually happened and then report it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center and your local police. Like I talked about, why speed banners, because they move through those multiple accounts. The odds of getting that money frozen is higher the faster you act. What not to do, definitely don't keep emailing a scammer. Don't click anything to cancel the payment. That's probably a malicious link. And don't try and send them a payment to fix it. If your credentials are compromised in the first hour, reset your password and reinforce multi-factor authentication. Sign out of all your sessions. Remove suspicious email box rules and forwarding. Check that sent items. Check your sent and deleted items. Notify your finances to withhold any payments, and contact your IT if you have one. And remember, these attackers often add hidden forwarding rules. So you need to make sure that you are going through that and reviewing those rules. Like I said, at least once a quarter is a solid idea. We can blow through this. This is if you want to, with your team, do a 5-minute exercise where it's called a tabletop exercise. It's the cybersecurity term. It's basically like a mock drill of an incident. Just go through your team, take some time to ask, what happens if you get one of these suspicious emails? What is our process? What do you guys do? How do we take care of it? And this will help reinforce that. So in case that there is an emergency, everybody's above board and knows what to do. For your 30-day hardening plan, the easy wins: enable MFA, enable external sender tagging, lock down shared email inboxes, and make sure you write down who does payment requests. Um, Create a one-page verification form for vendor changeover, implement a callback rule, make sure you set those high thresholds, those dual approval thresholds, and add a 24-hour delay. Train your staff in the next week. Make sure you run an exercise and have a place where you can document requests. And then in the long term, make sure you're reviewing vendor master changes, review those email rules and forwarding, and then review the number of reported suspicious emails, and schedule a quarterly refresher if you can. Just refresh people about these rules, just keeping it top of mind. It's very simple, very easy to do, and make sure that everybody is on the same page. If you want to learn more, visit the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. They have great to see how you report a fraud, how they put up alerts. RCMP has a great email business compromise guide. There's some international resources as well. The UK National Cybersecurity Center has some incredibly awesome checklists and payment fraud playbooks. Also, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency in the States has some other good phishing recognition and small business essentials. These are all resources that are free for you to look over and examine, and can go a big way. They can go a long way in keeping you safe. And another thing too, just always ask your bank too, what is your process in the event that we do have an emergency scenario where our email has been compromised, we've sent money, What should we do? What is your process? And that's a good thing to review with your bank when you have time, because again, it makes sure that you know what to do in the case of an emergency. Okay. This is pretty much the Q&A section, and pretty much the end of the presentation. Sorry, I kind of blew through some of the last parts of the presentation because you're kind of short on time. But are we allowed to do a Q&A? Do we have time for
Yes,
Q&A?
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. You can
Okay,
always run a
perfect.
couple of minutes after the time designated. Is
Mhm.
not a big deal at all. This topic is very important for small business owners and for anyone really who wants to take precautions and
Yeah,
scams
and
because like you mentioned, they're getting
sorry.
so modern and they're evolving every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And one thing, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn hound, so look up William Downing on LinkedIn, send me a message, connect with me. If you want to pick my brain, have a coffee, I'd love to do it. And if you're worried about a scam or something happening in your organization, please just talk to me. For a quick verification that takes me 15 minutes. It's not something I'd ever charge somebody for, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that less people are scammed and less people are taken advantage of. So if you have any concerns, just please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Absolutely. I am going to go ahead and leave the link to your LinkedIn profile here in the chat.
Mhm.
But we will also make sure to include your company's information in your LinkedIn profile in the follow-up email as well, so that people
Okay.
can connect with you after today's session. I do see a few questions coming in. We have one in the Q&A feature and one in the chat. But I also love the key takeaways and the next steps that you left on screen here for attendees.
Yeah.
Having multiple factor authentication, it's super helpful. I know sometimes it's annoying, but it definitely adds lots of a big layer of security to your accounts. It can be, I
Mhm.
don't know, WhatsApp or anything like that. So yeah, thank you so much, William, for all of the insights today. They're super actionable, and we love actionable things, as well
Good.
as the free resources. Who doesn't like free resources? So
Yeah.
this is also amazing. Thank you so much, Lily. Cassandra in the chat says, you mentioned something about making sure your send PDFs are safe or locked down. Can you explain that further?
Okay, so basically what I mean is that when someone sends you a PDF, it's from a source that you can trust. Like never click on a PDF that is from an unknown is from an unknown sender. Or for example, like if you have in your organization, people don't really send PDFs to one another, or maybe the only people who really do are like HR or something like that. If you get a PDF from someone who doesn't usually send them, that's a big red flag. So it's important just to uh, make sure you're aware of people's habits and how things and how information flows in your organization. So it's important to know if someone is not usually sending PDFs and sends them, that's a big red flag. But the biggest red flag is PDFs from unknown sources, right? One of the scam emails that I get personally a lot is basically it's like it's like your payroll uh is being your payroll is being changed. Basically, you need to look at this PDF to examine the changes or whatever. Usually it's pretty subtle, and it's not even something that has high urgency, because the PDF is usually poisoned, and that is a vector they use to get into your system. But the point is that never click on a PDF from a unknown source. And if people don't usually send them or share them in your organization, make sure that you are treating that with a certain degree of skepticism. Um, but if people usually send PDFs back and forth, it's probably not something to really worry about. But at the end of the day, it's just keeping our guard up, making sure that we are aware of red flags and something that may look suspicious. So that's the biggest red flag when it comes to sending a PDF. Another little tip and trick that I can share with you guys is if you want to be safe when opening up a PDF file, never use Adobe Reader on your actual computer. What you can do is you can open it up through Google, You can like open up through like the Google browser effectively or through Google Drive. And that is actually a virtual environment that's contained within Google's ecosystem, and it can't escape from Google's ecosystem onto your computer. So if you want to be 100% safe and ensure that a PDF isn't going to infect your system, use open up through a browser. Google is the easiest one because it's the most common. And they actually have like a virtual environment that kind of separates your machine and the file that you're opening up.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We have a few more questions here.
Sure.
So on to the next one. It says, is there a way to scan a computer or laptop to check if scammers have attached to it?
So there are yeah, thank you. So yeah, the most of the time, thankfully, for the actual malware, Google Windows antivirus has come a long way. Part of my job is to keep up with what's happening in the cybersecurity world,
Mhm.
and usually there'll be people who will, they have all the well-known malware, they have all the well-known because a lot of these malware, a lot of these spyware, they get passed around in kind of like illicit forums, and it's rarer and rarer that you have someone who's building these customized malware that is specifically for a certain this made by a specific person or a specific task. It usually ends up being big business for them, so they build up this malware and they sell it to whoever. Right now, Google, or excuse me, not Google, Windows Defender is able to identify about 99.1% of commonly known malware. So running an antivirus scan every so often is definitely advised. We're not at the time where we really need all these different antivirus scanners so much. Windows does do a pretty darn good job these days. So running a scan can help you detect if there's uh, any hidden malware, any hidden spyware. There are other things that you can do that are a little bit more um, technologically, you got to take like a more technical leap to do them. For example, you can look at your system events if you do have a Windows machine, you can look at your system events, and that will show you if someone is logging in maliciously, if someone's logging in remotely without your knowledge. You can also look at another big thing to look at is your apps that are running on startup. It's a good thing to check that every so often because sometimes you can notice an app or a program that's running when you start up your machine that you don't want to run or you don't recognize. What's another uh, but another thing to actually keep in mind is browser extensions. I was just actually working with a client recently where he had one of his meetings hijacked effectively, and the way that that happened was that he had a browser extension installed on his Chrome that he didn't recognize, that must have gotten through. It's a million ways that could be put on your browser. You click the wrong email, you go to the wrong website. But basically they had installed this extension without his knowledge, and they use that to compromise his meeting. So checking your browser extensions for unknown and unwanted extensions is another thing, because when it comes to running an antivirus, Google Defender isn't going to find those extensions, or is less likely to find those extensions. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. Hopefully that
Perfect.
answered the question.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We have an unfortunate comment here from an attendee who got scammed back in September 2025, and they don't know what to do about it. The attendee says that the scammer sent them a fake check from a company that they didn't even work for. So she falsely impersonated a company, like the person who scammed the
Mhm.
attendee. So what
Okay.
would the next steps be for that?
Well, how about, yeah, you talk with me and we can have a conversation, because I don't want to go through a bunch of personal details, but just to kind of get the gist of it. So it end up looking like you scammed somebody else, or someone scammed you. They sent you a fake check that you cashed,
Yes,
or
someone sent our webinar attendee a fake check from a company that they didn't work for.
okay. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. I got here. The scammer sent me a fake check for a company that didn't even work for it. As you falsely impersonated a company. Well, in that case, because we talked about, like, this is someone who's probably had access to your machine for a while. one thing we can do is we can look through our email rules and see if someone has compromised our email and has basically been sitting in the background watching what's going on. But at this point, if the money's kind of already been sent, the best thing to do is to save all the evidence. You know, we can have a conversation where I can kind of preserve the evidence and go through it, and then contact your bank, contact the wherever you send this money to, and immediately file a report, even if this doesn't automatically get the ball roll, even if this doesn't automatically end in results right away. It's a paper trail, it gets the ball rolling, and it's something that you can, for example, if you did want to go to the police, you can take that as a paper trail and be like, I filed a report with my bank. This is the number that the report is under. This is what we're doing, and that's the first step in getting the ball rolling. But I'd love to chat with you about that, and we can have a conversation, and I can give you a little bit more details about what we can do about that. Where would I be able to
Okay.
talk to you about this? Best way to reach me is through LinkedIn. You can also send me an email. And if you're in the city or one of the close by municipalities like Stony or Sherwood or St. Albert or Leduc, I'm happy to come and meet you in person, or we do a Zoom call, whichever is best for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, William. I wish we could get to all of the questions that we have today, but I'm sure that William will be more than happy to connect with each of you one-on-one to answer all of those present questions.
Hmm.
I just want to thank everyone and William, especially you so much for being part of this webinar today and for breaking this topic down in a clear and practical way. But today brings us to today's session, to the end. So thank you so much again to everyone who joined. We know that your time is very valuable, and we appreciate that you spend your time with us.
Yeah.
If today's session raised some questions about protecting your business or strengthening your processes, you can also book a free one-on-one session with a business strategist here at Business Link. You can scan the QR code on screen or visit businesslink.ca/book a meeting, and we will be following up with the email and the recording and any additional resources that were mentioned today. Before you go, just make sure that you take a moment to complete the feedback survey because it helps us to continue to improve our programming. And just remember that we hope to help you grow and move forward with confidence. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks so much for coming, everyone. I really appreciate you coming out. And I hope that some of you reach out to me and we can talk about these important topics on a deeper level. So, like I said, feel free to reach out to me anytime, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, William. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.